Hey, what's up everyone? Before we dive into today's absolute chaos, I need your help real quick. We're grinding hard to hit that 1,000 subscriber milestone, and every single subscription gets us closer. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button right now. It takes 2 seconds and means the world. Let's build this thing together. Now, let's get into it. Dillon Gabriel just made his first NFL start, and the internet cannot stop talking about it. Not because of what happened on the field, but because of what Pat McAfee said off it. Gabriel went out there against Minnesota, threw for 190 yards, couple touchdowns, no picks. Solid numbers on paper. The kind of debut that should have everyone nodding along saying, yeah, decent start. Let's see what happens next. But that's not what's happening at all. Instead, Cleveland is on fire, and Pat McAfee is standing in the middle of it with gasoline and a lighter, grinning like he knows exactly what he just started. Here's where it gets messy. McAfee dropped a bomb during one of his shows that basically implied Gabriel didn't earn that starting spot through pure competition. He suggested there was something else going on behind the scenes. Politics, comfort levels, front office maneuvering, the whole Cleveland special, and just like that, the narrative completely flipped. What should have been a straightforward quarterback evaluation turned into a full-blown conspiracy theory that has the entire city questioning everything. Because when you're the Browns, nothing is ever simple, nothing is ever clean. There's always another layer of dysfunction waiting to be peeled back. Let's talk about what actually happened in that game. Gabriel was composed, careful, efficient. He completed 19 of 33 passes, managed the pocket well, didn't force anything stupid. For a first career start against a top 10 defense, those are solid metrics. The problem is Cleveland fans didn't want solid. They wanted electric. They wanted someone who could take over a game, not just manage it. And that's where the Shedeur-Sanders conversation comes roaring back into the picture. Because while Gabriel was playing it safe in London, Shedeur was back home in Cleveland, watching, waiting, and according to everyone who's been paying attention, absolutely torching it in practice. McAfee's whole point was that Gabriel feels like the safe choice. The guy coaches can control. The quarterback who runs the plays as designed, doesn't freelance, doesn't create chaos. Shedeur-Sanders is the opposite. He's got swagger, confidence, that dangerous edge that either wins you championships or blows up in spectacular fashion. And apparently Kevin Stefanski wanted predictability over fireworks. He wanted a game manager, not a game changer. The second McAfee said that out loud, everything made sense to Browns fans. It wasn't about who was better. It was about who made the coaching staff feel comfortable. And in Cleveland, comfort has never won anything. Now here's the thing that makes this whole situation even more insane. Gabriel didn't even play poorly. He made smart decisions, protected the football, gave his team a chance to win. If Carson Wentz doesn't lead that final drive for Minnesota, Gabriel walks off the field with a victory in his first start. That's impressive. That deserves credit, but none of that matters because the narrative is already written. Fair or not, Gabriel is now the guy who got the job because of politics, not performance. And Shedeur is the guy everyone believes should be out there instead. That's a brutal position for any rookie to be in, let alone in a city as passionate and unforgiving as Cleveland. The statistics tell one story. Gabriel had a QBR of 38, which isn't great, but context matters. He was the first quarterback all season to throw 2 touchdown passes against Minnesota's defense. He only turned the ball over once, and that came late when he was trying to force something to keep the drive alive. For a first start in a hostile environment overseas, those numbers aren't embarrassing. But here's the catch. He was only 3 for 10 on passes that traveled more than 10 yards downfield. Everything was short, safe, underneath stuff. Check downs, quick slants, screens. The kind of offense that keeps you in games but doesn't win them. And that's exactly what McAfee was getting at. Gabriel isn't being asked to win games. He's being asked not to lose them. And for a franchise desperate for a spark, that feels like settling. Then you look at the tape and it gets even more interesting. Gabriel showed poise, no doubt. He didn't panic when the pocket collapsed. He made the right read on most of his progressions, but there was a hesitancy there, a reluctance to take chances. On third down, Cleveland went 0 for 4 in the fourth quarter. 4 opportunities to extend drives and keep the defense off the field, and Gabriel couldn't convert a single one. Not because he made terrible throws, but because he didn't try to make great ones. He played it safe every time, and in the NFL, safe doesn't cut it when you're trying to close out a game. That's where the Shedeur conversation becomes impossible to ignore, because if you watch Shedeur in practice, watch how he attacks downfield, how he trusts his arm, how he plays with that killer instinct, you start wondering what this offense could actually look like with someone willing to take risks. Pat McAfee didn't just stumble into this take. He's got sources, connections, people inside buildings who tell him things off the record. And when he came on air with that smirk, that knowing look, everyone watching understood he wasn't speculating. He knew something. Maybe not every detail, but enough to feel confident calling it out publicly. He essentially said the Browns chose Gabriel because Stefanski didn't want to deal with the personality, the attention, the pressure that comes with starting Shedeur Sanders. And honestly, that tracks. Stefanski is a coach who values control, structure, discipline. He wants guys who follow the script, not rewrite it mid-play. Shedeur doesn't operate like that. He's instinctual, improvisational, the kind of player who makes magic happen, but also makes coaches pull their hair out. And apparently Stefanski decided he'd rather have boring competence than unpredictable brilliance. The fallout was immediate. Social media exploded. Browns fans who were cautiously optimistic about Gabriel suddenly turned on him through no real fault of his own. It wasn't personal. It was about what he represented. The same old Browns mentality. Playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Settling for okay when great was sitting right there on the bench. Memes flooded timelines. Debate shows couldn't shut up about it. Talking heads were picking sides. Some defending Stefanski's process. Others torching him for overthinking it. And through it all, Shedeur stayed quiet. No tweets, no quotes, no drama. Just showed up every day, worked, and let his play speak, which somehow made the whole situation even louder. Inside the building, things got tense fast. When McAfee dropped that revelation, it wasn't just fans who reacted, players noticed, coaches felt it. The whole dynamic shifted because now there was a narrative attached to the decision that made it feel less about football and more about politics. And once that seed is planted, it's impossible to ignore. Veteran guys started whispering. Position coaches were caught in the middle, some agreeing with Stefanski, others quietly believing Shedeur should be out there. The locker room, which should have been unified heading into the season, suddenly felt fractured, not overtly, not in a blow up on the sideline kind of way, but in that subtle, uncomfortable tension that festers under the surface and eventually poisons everything. Then came week 2 of the preseason and Gabriel struggled. Not disastrous, but visibly shaky. Timing was off, reads were late, throws were sailing. Meanwhile, Shedeur was running the scout team and looking absolutely dialed in. Crisp throws, perfect placement, commanding the huddle like he'd been doing it for years. Guys on defense were getting frustrated because they couldn't stop him even when they knew what was coming, and that's when the whispers turned into conversations. Players started asking each other, are we really doing this? Are we really going with the safe guy over the electric one? Because everyone in that building could feel the difference. When Gabriel took snaps, it was methodical. Calculated? Fine. When Shedeur took snaps, the whole energy changed. Guys played faster, hit harder, fought for every inch. That's not something you can manufacture, that's presence. Stefanski tried to hold the line. In press conferences, he stuck to the script, talked about process, evaluation, taking it day by day. All the coach speak designed to buy time and avoid controversy. But the longer he stuck with Gabriel, the more it looked like stubbornness instead of strategy. Reporters started pressing harder. Fans got louder. Former players weighed in on podcasts and radio shows, most of them saying the same thing. Start the guy who gives you the best chance to win, not the guy who makes you feel comfortable. And slowly, the pressure became unbearable. What McAfee really exposed wasn't just a quarterback decision, it was a philosophy, a mindset. The Browns have spent years trying to be respectable, competent, stable. They've drafted smart, hired experienced coaches, built through the trenches, all the right moves on paper, but somewhere along the way, they forgot what actually wins in this league. You need playmakers. You need guys who can take over when the game is on the line. You need that irrational confidence that makes defenses panic. Gabriel is a fine quarterback. Shedeur Sanders is a different animal entirely, and the fact that Cleveland chose fine over phenomenal tells you everything about how that organization still operates. By week 3, something shifted. Practice reps started changing. Shedeur was getting more first-team work. Nothing official, no announcements, just a subtle rotation adjustment that anyone paying attention could see. And when word leaked out, the city exploded with hope. Finally, maybe, just maybe, the Browns were listening. Maybe they realized playing it safe wasn't gonna cut it. Maybe Stefanski swallowed his pride and admitted what everyone already knew, that if you want to compete in this league, you can't be afraid of your own talent. The offense immediately looked different, faster, sharper, more aggressive. Shedeur wasn't checking down on 3rd and 7. He was attacking, throwing into tight windows, trusting his receivers, making plays that Gabriel simply wouldn't attempt. And the crazy part is, it worked. Suddenly drives were lasting longer, points were coming easier, and the whole team played with a confidence they'd been missing. The defense fed off it, special teams stepped up, even the coaching staff seemed lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Because deep down, everyone knew this was the right move. It just took Pat McAfee saying it out loud for the front office to finally admit it. Here's what makes this whole saga so perfectly Cleveland. It's not just about football. It never is. It's about identity, pride, decades of disappointment, and a fan base that's been burned so many times they've learned to expect the worst. When McAfee called out the politics behind the Gabriel decision, it confirmed every fear Browns fans have ever had, that their team will always find a way to overthink, overanalyze, and ultimately sabotage itself. That winning will always take a back seat to comfort, safety, and avoiding criticism, and that no matter how much talent they have, they'll never fully trust it. But here's the beautiful part. Cleveland fans didn't give up. They didn't accept the narrative. They screamed loud enough, long enough, that something actually changed. Shedeur Sanders getting those first-team reps wasn't an accident. It was a response. A reluctant admission that maybe, just maybe, the fans were right all along, and that's rare. Usually front offices dig in, double down, defend their choices to the bitter end, but this time the pressure was too much. The truth was too obvious, and McAfee's platform was too big to ignore. Now, whether Shedeur actually becomes the starter long-term, who knows? This is Cleveland we're talking about. Logic doesn't always apply, but what's undeniable is that the conversation has completely shifted. Gabriel went from promising rookie to political pawn through no real fault of his own. Shedeur went from backup to folk hero without even starting a game, and Stefanski went from respected play caller to the guy everyone's side-eyeing, wondering if he's got the guts to make the bold call when it matters most. The reality is both quarterbacks are talented, both deserve opportunities, but only one of them has that indefinable quality that makes a franchise believe. Only one of them walks into a huddle and instantly makes everyone around him better. And if the Browns are smart, if they've learned anything from decades of mediocrity, they'll stop overthinking it and just let the kid play. Because playing it safe has never ever worked in Cleveland, and it's not going to start now. What Pat McAfee did was pull back the curtain. He exposed the internal debate, the hesitation, the fear that's plagued this franchise forever, and in doing so, he forced the Browns to confront themselves, to admit that maybe their process isn't as clean as they pretend, that maybe gut instinct and raw talent matter more than film study and risk assessment, that maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop playing scared and start playing to win. So here we are. Dillon Gabriel made his first start, played solid football, and still became the center of one of the wildest controversies of the preseason. Not because he failed, but because someone finally said what everyone was thinking, that he wasn't the best option, that politics played a role, that Cleveland once again chose comfort over greatness, and now the whole city is holding its breath, waiting to see if the front office has the courage to do what's right, or if they'll stick to the script, play it safe, and watch another season slip away while the real answer sits on the bench, waiting for his chance. This is Cleveland football, messy, dramatic, frustrating, and somehow still full of hope, because no matter how many times they break your heart, no matter how many bad decisions pile up, you keep believing, you keep showing up, you keep demanding better, and sometimes, just sometimes, they actually listen. Pat McAfee didn't create this mess. He just shined a light on it, and now that it's out in the open, there's no hiding anymore. The Browns have to decide who they want to be. Safe and forgettable, or bold and unforgettable. And honestly, after everything this city has been through, they deserve the latter. Let's see if they're brave enough to take it.